I'm not done by any stretch of the imagination. I'll handle this loss like a champion. I will not shy away from it. I will not make excuses to it. I lost in there. There was errors, but errors can be fixed if you face them head on and fix things. That's it.
It was always easy for me to come back after a loss and discuss it the next day. It was always easy to do, no matter how disappointing or how hurtful the loss was. It was easy because over the 9 seasons that I made the recaps, they were done primarily because I considered myself a broadcaster. Being a fantasy player was secondary. In 2015, when the recaps started, I eventually made it to the championship game and I lost to Ed. The next year I didn't make the playoffs, and the year after that, it was a complete rampage of the entire league, and Bundy ran away with his 3rd championship in 2017. I came back and I discussed victories and discussed 5 straight losing seasons after that. But it was always nothing for me because the reason of doing all of this was to improve as a broadcaster. The comment that I always took pride in hearing in the chat or whatever mediums we use to communicate during the fantasy season was when somebody said, "This is the league that I care about the most. This is the league that I care about. I play in other leagues. I play in 3 or 4, 100 bazillion leagues. I play for money, but this is the one that counts because I want to beat all you fucks." I love hearing those comments because I'd like to think that I was one of the main reasons why this became everybody's favorite league. Being hateable, right? Being verbose and aggrandizing one's own persona over personal friends and family. That makes you hateable. But being that we're in a league that's based on bragging rights, that's currency. And when it came to currency, I was number 1. I was number 1 in peddling filth and discussing your teams in the most disrespectful way, with a balance, of course. We always remain respectful. We never take it to a personal area. It's a balance. And that was the challenge of making these recaps. So coming back and discussing a loss is still entertaining. It's still fun because everything that we had built up, everything that we have made ourselves to be was our own creation. So somebody wanting us to discuss them defeating us is just a mark of what we've done and the character that we've created over 9 seasons. And I take a lot of pride in that. Soon you'll understand. Oh, whoa. This is your round 2 recap. Bundy here, you there. Of course, 2 games to speak of. Big Papa Pooh losing to Ewok Rape, and Team Toronto Bundy losing to Guylander. But first, let's get to Big Papa Pooh and Ewok Rape. 74-90, Eric is victorious over Jay, advancing to the fantasy championship. 23 points from Jalen Hurts, 18 from Christian McCaffrey, just 9 from Kenneth Walker III. Mike Evans, of course, comes through with 20 points. And the rest of Eric's team didn't really do much. A disappointing Saturday night for Eric, just 4 points from his defense and 6 points from Tyler Bass. What sticks out the most for Eric is the performance of Amari Cooper. As Amari Cooper was doing what he was doing, obviously I was glued to this game because this was the Houston game, so I was watching Devin Singletary. Amari Cooper, catch after catch. I was thinking about the many times that I flirted with Amari right in front of Eric's face. The times that I did it this season. So many times I said I wanted Amari Cooper. I don't think I made a serious offer for him. I don't think I did that. But after many weeks of basically nothing, with exception to week 15, just last week he got 16 points. Before that, Amari Cooper was non-existent. But one could, of course, say that now with Joe Flacco being locked in, this is going to be a threat for however long it's going to last. 40 points for Amari Cooper on Eric's bench, 11 catches, 265 yards, 2 touchdowns. This is the best performance from any Browns wide receiver ever. I believe maybe he beat, what was that guy a couple years ago? Jay had him in one of his championship seasons. He smoked too much weed. Why is his name escaping me? We remember the season that he had, the breakout season that he had. I think he was the one that previously held the record for the yardage, but 40 points on Eric's bench, 19 for Gabe Davis. Eric leaving a lot of points on the bench, but fortunately for him, it doesn't hurt because he didn't end up losing the game. Jay, on the other hand, had no points on his bench, so you walk away with that, at least knowing that you made the better decisions. Not Davante Adams, but you made, for the most part, the best decisions for your team. Jay was saying in the chat that he was mulling over whether to start Zamir White over Davante Adams. Davante Adams, of course, getting 0 points, and Zamir White with 14. But Jay can at least rest peacefully knowing that the difference wouldn't have made him the victor. So it would have came close, but Zamir White's point total wouldn't have gave him the win. So you can at least walk away knowing that. And I can walk away having a certain amount of peace myself, but we'll get to that in a bit. Just 2 points for Alvin Kamara. That was the Thursday night game. 10 points for Jonathan Taylor. His wide receivers outside of Davante Adams, 20 for Justin Jefferson and 16 for Amon St. Brown. But Big Papa Pooh is eliminated and Ewok Rape moves on to the fantasy championship. It was a good game. It was closer than I thought. I predicted Ewok Rape to get the victory because I know what the fuck I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? Nothing more to say about these games, really. I mean, the better team won. Eric with the most points this fantasy season. The benefit that Jay had, as I said, were his wide receivers. But if Davante Adams would have had a better game and Alvin Kamara would have done just a little bit more, that would have gotten Jay over the hump. And it didn't help that Jay got an injury to his kicker. Now, I've seen injuries to kickers maybe during a week. And, during the middle of the week, maybe one of you... It never happened to me this season. Certainly didn't happen to Ed because he held on to the same kicker. But during the middle of the week, maybe a kicker gets hurt, you drop him, and you start another one. I haven't seen a kicker get hurt in the middle of a game. Right? I haven't seen that this season, much less ever in fantasy. And that was another, that was another missed opportunity for Jay. Again, I was watching this game. There were 3 or 4 opportunities that the Browns had to just kick a field goal. And instead, it was just a 4-down drive. They either scored a touchdown or it was a turnover on downs. So Dustin Hopkins would have had 3 to 4 opportunities to get field goals, and the Browns would have just settled for that because, they were up ahead for most of the game. So bad game for Big Papa Pooh. He is eliminated. We move on to the Toronto Bundy losing to Gylander 77-109. Gylander advancing once again to the fantasy championship. What happened here? Well, I wanna discuss my decision to throw in Joshua Palmer. So after the first round of games, I think Cincinnati and Pittsburgh game and Joe Mixon, if Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow aren't playing, then Joe Mixon is limited on how effective he can be. And I saw it in this game. The Pittsburgh defense just had way too much confidence. They just thought that, Jake Browning is good, but with those two weapons gone, the Pittsburgh defense was like, look, Jake, you're just going to have to beat us. And he did his thing for a couple of drives, but he wasn't able to sustain the solid play. So Joe Mixon only scored 6 points. But after that game, I said, you know what? Took a look at the fantasy app. Zay Flowers was still rumored to be out of the game for Monday night. They said, oh, we'll let you know 90 minutes before the game. And I said, you know what? Andy's team is better than mine, but he's not that much better than mine. He had a 23 from Puka Nacua and a 16 from Kyron Williams, but I think Josh Allen can still have a great game. I think Rashad White can still have a great game. I have confidence in DK Metcalf. I'm going to go with Joshua Palmer because I think that the Buffalo Bills will be ahead and the Chargers will have to throw 1,000 times. Even if Easton Stick is garbage, Joshua Palmer got a touchdown last week when they lost that terrible game against the Raiders. I'm going to start Joshua Palmer. I started him. He got one pass in the first drive for about 20 yards, and there wasn't much after that, just scoring 4 total points. And it was just a thought that wouldn't escape my brain. Going to sleep that night on Saturday, and even after the Sunday games, going to sleep on both those nights, I thought, number one, what if Zay Flowers plays? Which I made my peace with that. I said, well, if he plays, he's Zay Flowers. He's going to do okay. He's never done great things on the field, in his rookie season. I said, what if Zay Flowers gets like 35 points? What if that happens? What if what you said last week when you talked about tough decisions, when you talked about the pain that hurts and the pain that alters, what if you made one of those decisions right there? I thought about that. Thankfully, it didn't matter because Zay Flowers eventually got 13 points, scoring a touchdown. Let's see. Zay Flowers, 9 catches, 72 yards, and 1 touchdown. Just like Jay, the difference between Joshua Palmer and Zay Flowers wouldn't have been enough to get me the victory. I would have had somewhere in the mid-80s. It would not be enough to beat Andy. Devin Singletary, game script totally fucked me in the ass there. The Cleveland Browns, their defense shined. They got a ton of sacks. They were just getting after the quarterback. And Devin Singletary had a couple amazing runs, just a few great runs. I'd like to see what's going to happen with him next season. He had a couple, but in the end, it wasn't enough. There was a goal line situation when the game was completely out of hand and they didn't have him in the game, and then they scored eventually, and then they put him in the red zone after that in the next drive, but then they didn't give him the ball. That was so fucking frustrating. Just give him the goddamn ball. If I would have gotten 2 touchdowns from him. But you know what? No. I'm not going to say that. Because Josh Allen kept me in the game with the 24 points on Saturday. Right, Andy? He kept me in the game, and Andy talked a lot of shit. Andy talked this shit, as he should, in the chat, and he was like, oh, it's over. It wasn't over until the Chiefs game. When Patrick Mahomes was having his difficulties, you fucking know that he had like 4 points or something in the second half, and it was like, wait a minute, Patrick Mahomes could put up another 5 against me, just like when I beat Andy last time. Did Andy score 77 points? I think Andy scored 77. This was kind of similar to I'm not going to check it back, but I believe Andy scored 77 points just like I did this week. Somewhere around the middle of the Chiefs game, that's when it was kind of like, well, it's not very likely that I'm going to get the victory. So Andy talked a lot of shit, but he knows he was sweating it out just a bit. But during that game, I kind of felt like Jay, when I was kind of just like, man, take this. Just take the Band-Aid off. Just snap it off, nigga. Just fucking do it already. Just fucking do it. Because what I wasn't willing to live with was the Joshua Palmer decision being the decision that keeps me out of the chip. I'd much rather have Andy hand me my ass for the next couple of games and make it a complete it was an impossibility to beat him mathematically. I'd rather that than to have to live with Zay Flowers haunting me. I'd never select Zay Flowers again. I got him in a trade from Ed, but I would never, ever, ever deal with Zay Flowers again. I don't deal with players when they do shit like that. I do not. Austin Ekeler, the decision to bench him was sort of, pain that hurts. Or not even. It was a bit minor. He had 8 points. He did a little better than he normally does. Devin Singletary got 5. A difference of 3. Whatever. It still wouldn't have gotten me the victory. Tally that up as well. It wouldn't have mattered. So, Andy, with his Chuba Herbert touchdown, and David Njoku, who he replaced with TJ Hawkinson. Andy, let me tell you this. And this is the reason why I say that you sound scared when you said what you said last night. And this isn't going to be delving too much into your matchup with Eric, but I want to say that your comment that you just randomly jumped in and you attacked all of us who selected other players before Eric had selected Christian McCaffrey with the 6th pick. You attacked us. You were like, oh, everybody should be ashamed of themselves because you let this bozo get away with Christian McCaffrey. Andy said all of this. It looks like you're scared because you're about to face Christian McCaffrey. We're off of that. We've discussed it. Eric's discussed it. Jay's discussed it. Maybe Joe has said something about it in the chat. Of course, Hensel's not going to say anything. I'm not sure what Ed's had to say about his Ja'Marr Chase selection, eventually giving him to me. But we've all discussed it, and all of a sudden you jump in. You're like, oh my God, Christian McCaffrey. No, how dare they let Eric select Christian McCaffrey? You, sir, are Eric Jr. Because Jay selected Justin Jefferson with the 1st pick. Then Ed selected Ja'Marr Chase with the 5th. And Pedro selected Davante Adams with the 9th. So there were 3 wide receivers selected before your monster. Just like there were 3 running backs selected before Eric's monster. So let's not act like you didn't get away with something as well. Let's not act like Tyreek Hill's not the best wide receiver. And look, this is outside of the conversation because what everybody wants to do is downplay the preseason conversation, which was Austin Ekeler or Christian McCaffrey. Who are you going to pick? Everybody wants to deny that. There was no conversation about Nick Chubb. There was no conversation about Henry. There was people. That's why I don't down Big Papa Pooh and I don't down Ed. There was a conversation about, hey, are you going to pick Ja'Marr Chase? Are you going to pick? Nobody said anything about Davante Adams. I got to say that. There was no conversation about Davante Adams being a thing. So maybe Pedro should be the one that should be shamed for not selecting Tyreek Hill. But my point is that if we want to ignore what Ekeler was before the season, because we're all sort of prisoners of the moment, which is why I said what I said about Brock Purdy yesterday. I was so satisfied watching Brock Purdy take the hits that he took as far as interceptions. We're all prisoners of the moment because we see what a player is now, and then we totally forget what the situation was 13 weeks ago when somebody had the value that they had, when he scored the fucking touchdowns that he scored. So if you want to use that logic, let's just totally throw out the logic of Ja'Marr Chase being a thing and Jefferson being a thing, and let's shame Ed and let's shame Jay. It's stupid. It's silly. Hindsight is 20/20. Fuck you, Andy. Stop being a fucking pussy and you start Tyreek Hill. Fortunately for you, you didn't have to start Tyreek Hill. He scored 9 points on your bench. And you could say that for Andy, his situation kind of fared out like mine. because he had the opportunity to just wait and take Ty Chandler out of the flex position. And Tyreek Hill scored 2 more points than him, so it was kind of an Eckler and Devin Singletary situation. Aaron Jones over Chuba Herbert, not really much of a difference. I will say that Andy got lucky as hell that TJ Hawkinson got hurt. He couldn't have predicted that. TJ Hawkinson was looking pretty good, and I think he would have gotten more than just 10 points in that game. That's a revenge game for him. I think he would have done a lot better, but this goes with the theme of Andy's season, just luck, luck, luck. We're going to talk about Andy, and we'll talk about Eric in the next installment as we make a prediction for the championship game. Don't expect that on Thursday. I think the Thursday game is the Browns versus the Jets, and neither of these two, well, maybe there's a chance that Andy starts Njoku. I doubt Andy's going to start Njoku versus the Jets. Let's see who Hawkinson faces, if he's healthy. Hawkinson faces the Green Bay Packers. That's a much better matchup than starting David Njoku against the Jets, but let's see what happens there. So that's it. Big Papa Pooh and the Toronto Bundy are now eliminated. I said the C word to Andy in the chat. Starts with a C, ends with an S. Andy came back and kind of like shooed me away. Andy, fuck you. Andy, fuck you. You're only showing that in victory, you're just as much of a douche. In defeat, you'd be just as much of a douche. I'm not like that. I'm an honorable man. If you win, I give you the C word. If you don't want the C word, then it's fuck you for life, nigga. Then it's discrediting whatever it is that you... Would you prefer that? Would you prefer me just discredit everything that you do for all eternity? Is that what you want? No. These guys, you know, they want it both ways. You know, they want it both ways. But what are you going to do? So, we move on to the championship round.